Welcome to As It Is, a 30-minute program designed for English learners. I'm Jonathan Evans.
And I'm Ashley Thompson. This program is aimed at English learners, so we speak a little slower and we use words and phrases especially written for people learning English. We also explain words and language rules, all while bringing you stories and information from around the world.
Today on the program, you will hear stories from Brian Lynn, Mario Ritter, Ann Ball, Katie Weaver, Bruce Albert, and Marinush Karimian Ainsworth. Later, John Russell will have this week's education report. But first, here is Brian Lynn.
Up to 700 migrants are believed to have died in the past week crossing the Mediterranean Sea, the United Nations said Tuesday. At least 3 boats sank in the biggest death toll for migrants in more than a year, the United Nations Refugee Agency said. The boats left Libya and were trying to reach Italy. Most of the migrants came from Africa. About 14,000 people were rescued in calmer seas since Monday, Reuters news agency reported. Survivors who arrived in Italy said one of the boats was carrying many women and children. The migrants pay smugglers to take them on small rubber boats or old fishing vessels. Many do not know how to swim and do not have life jackets. Giovanna Benedetto is with the humanitarian group Save the Children. She said the survivors spoke about horrible conditions on the boats.
They lived terrible situation. They told us terrible story. They saw killing people only because those people want to have some food. Their stories are really, really terrifying.
The UN announced Tuesday that more than 2,500 migrants have died trying to cross the Mediterranean Sea into Europe so far this year. That is a big increase from 1,855 people who died in the first 5 months of 2015. The trip from North Africa to Italy is the deadliest way to cross, according to UNHCR spokesman William Spindler. 2,119 of the deaths reported so far this year have been among people making this journey, making the odds of dying as high as 1 in 23, he said. Most migrants traveling this way are from Nigeria and Gambia. Spindler said the migrants are risking everything to make the trips because they face very desperate conditions at home.
The reason why so many people are taking to sea at the moment and risking their lives is because they have no option. We have to give them the possibility to travel legally and safely.
I'm Brian Lynn.
The number of Afghans displaced within their country has increased sharply over the past 3 years, says Amnesty International. The rights group reported on Tuesday that Afghanistan has 1.2 million internally displaced people. That is almost double the number in 2013. The report comes at a time of concerns over increasing violence by the Taliban this year. Champa Patel is Amnesty International's South Asia director. She said that growing numbers of displaced Afghans are living in very bad conditions. Afghans are one of the world's largest refugee populations. The United Nations Refugee Agency estimates that 2.6 million Afghans are living in neighboring Pakistan and Iran. Champa Patel said, while the world's attention seems to have moved on from Afghanistan, we risk forgetting the plight of those left behind by the conflict. In recent years, Afghanistan's central government has promised to help internally displaced people. But these Afghans still lack food, water, health care, and chances to seek education and employment, Amnesty said. The report said the situation facing internally displaced Afghans has worsened in recent years. It said less aid and essential things, such as food, are available. Amnesty blamed reported corruption, a lack of ability in the government, and decreasing international interest in Afghanistan's national IDP policy. The latest policy was launched 2 years ago. Instead, the report said, forced evictions by both the government and private groups are a daily threat to internally displaced people. Amnesty said the Ministry of Refugees and Repatriation has the job of coordinating the IDP policy. But the ministry lacks financial resources and has been accused of corruption, the group said. Most of the internally displaced population is in need of basic health care. Also, schooling for children has been suspended since their families were forced to leave their homes. Champa Patel said, they have lost the traditional sources of their livelihoods and only have few opportunities for informal work, creating circumstances where women are excluded and children are being exploited and not educated. Amnesty International has called on Afghan officials and the international community to act quickly. It said these groups must work to meet the most urgent needs of displaced Afghans. The Afghan government has yet to comment on the Amnesty International report. I'm Mario Ritter.
Civilian deaths are rising as the battle for Fallujah intensifies. The Islamic State terror group has held the Iraqi city for more than 2 years. Iraqi forces have launched an offensive to retake Fallujah. Civilians have been killed in heavy shelling or buried alive under the wreckage of their homes, according to reports received by the United Nations Refugee Agency, or UNHCR. There are also reports of several hundred families being used as human shields by Islamic State militants, said agency spokesman William Spindler. Militants are putting those families in or around military targets in hopes of preventing an attack, he said. About 625 families have escaped the fighting since last week. Iraqi forces are separating men they capture from their families to ensure who is IS and who is not. Approximately 500 men and boys over 12 years old are held for security screening, which can take 5 to 7 days, Spindler said. VOA spoke about the process with a refugee named Ayad. IS militants questioned me, the Hashtashabi and the Iraqi army, he said. Hashtashabi is the name of the group of Shiite militias that work with the Iraqi military. Ayad said Islamic State warned that, "If we find your name, we will kill you. If you are in the clear, you can live with us in peace." Hashda Shabi has been a leader in fighting IS. Some observers see the pro-Iran militias as better trained than the Iraqi army. But others worry that a strong Shiite presence in the fighting will worsen religious divisions in the country. Many Sunnis in Baghdad say they live in fear of the Shiite militias. Human rights organizations have noted abuses by the militias in the past. Iraqi lawmaker and former national security advisor Muwafaq al-Rubayi defended the Hashda's role in the fight against Islamic State. "I believe the Hashda Shabi should have and is having a pivotal role in the freedom of our occupied territories," Rubayi told VOA. The Hashda Shabi fight the IS in a guerrilla war style, not a traditional style, not like the Iraqi army, he said. But the Iraqi army, the federal police, and even the anti-terrorism forces, they fight in a traditional way. That is why the destruction is huge, he said. The presence of the pro-Iranian Shiite militias also feeds into concerns over Iran's growing power in the Middle East. Iranian General Qasem Soleimani visited the Fallujah area over the weekend, raising the concerns of Sunni leaders in Baghdad. Fallujah is traditionally under Sunni control. Karim Nouri, a spokesman for the Hashda Shabi, defended the presence of Iranian advisors. "We have American security advisors sitting in the green zone, and we have Iranian security advisors on the front line helping us, but only with advice, nothing else. The Iranian advisors are more helpful than the Americans," he told VOA. I'm Katie Weaver.
Brazil continues to fall into political chaos as its transparency minister resigned. Fabiano Silveira resigned Monday after he was allegedly heard in a recording passing information to a politician under investigation, Reuters reported. Officials are investigating the state-owned oil company Petrobras and alleged bribes to politicians. On May 12th, President Dilma Rousseff was suspended while the Senate looks into her conduct. Opponents of Rousseff and her Workers' Party took money from Petrobras in return for favoring the oil company. Supporters of Rousseff say she has been the target of a plan to unseat her. Last week, Brazil's planning minister resigned when the released tapes showed him possibly influenced by Petrobras officials as well. The resignations have hurt the government of Michel Temer of the Brazilian Democratic Movement Party, or PMDB. The lawyer and politician is acting president since Rousseff's suspension May 12th. Several members of Temer's government are under investigation in the Petrobras probe. While Rousseff faces an impeachment trial on charges of breaking budget laws, others say Temer plotted against her. Temer has strongly denied the allegation. The recordings could lessen support for Rousseff's unseating, observers say. The 2-year investigation into billions of dollars in bribes at Petrobras has also looked into the honesty of dozens of politicians. They include members of Tamer's PMDB and Rousseff's Workers' Party, Reuters said. I'm Ann Ball.
Officials in Thailand are removing tigers from the grounds of a Buddhist temple. The tigers were popular with travelers who could pay to walk among them and take photographs. But wildlife groups said the animals suffered from poor treatment. Thai officials said they were reacting to reports that the tigers were kept in small spaces, sometimes in chains. Animal rights groups said some tigers were in bad health. By late Tuesday, the Reuters news service reported that 40 tigers had been taken from the temple west of Bangkok. Thailand's Department of National Parks said efforts to remove the remaining 97 tigers would continue in coming days. CNN reported that temple officials tried to slow the process by setting some tigers free. Thai officials said the captured tigers will be taken to 3 animal sanctuaries in Thailand, according to the Associated Press. The group that operates Tiger Temple said the animals were treated well. There is nothing illegal and dangerous at all, the group told CNN. It said removing the tigers will hurt the local economy. According to Reuters, people visiting the temple often used mobile telephones to take pictures of themselves petting tigers. Wildlife groups praised the Thai government's decision to remove the tigers. Tourists suckered into Tiger Temple unwittingly supported the torture of tigers, said People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. It said the animals were drugged and beaten with sticks. Katie Moore of the International Fund for Animal Welfare said tigers do not belong in small spaces. They suffer in such spaces, she said. Adam Roberts is the leader of Born Free USA. He told VOA that he hopes the rescue of the tigers in Thailand will lead to similar actions in China and the United States. He said tigers are held and traded as pets in some parts of the U.S. In China, tigers are held in tiger farms for bones and other body parts, Roberts said. On its website, Tiger Temple said some tigers have to be tied down to protect visitors and other tigers because they sometimes wake in a restless state. People's safety has to be our main concern, it said. Thai officials said they received reports about visitors to the temple being attacked by tigers. The Thailand temple's collection of tigers is not unusual, according to Moore of the International Fund for Animal Welfare. There are many instances around the world of tigers and other wildlife being held in poor conditions, she said. I'm Bruce Alpert.
Critics were outraged after zoo officials shot and killed a gorilla that held a 4-year-old boy at an American zoo this weekend. Harambe, a male western lowland gorilla, was shot and killed Saturday by Cincinnati Zoo officials. The boy had fallen into the gorilla's exhibit. Officials feared the animal would hurt the 4-year-old. The boy climbed over a 3-foot-tall railing, walked through bushes, and fell 15 feet into the moat of the gorilla exhibit. Zookeepers called to the gorillas to come out of the exhibit. 2 female gorillas complied, but Harambe did not. Instead, he was attracted to the child. Zoo officials say Harambe was visibly agitated by the screams and panic of the crowd around the exhibit. They decided to shoot the gorilla. Zoo director Thane Maynard said there was no doubt that the boy's life was in danger. Tranquilizing Harambe was not an option, Maynard said. Critics are furious about the killing of Harambe. Many on social media are blaming Michelle Gregg, the mother of the boy. They say she did not watch her son closely enough where there were many dangerous animals. I'm Marinush Karamian Ainsworth.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Education Report. Pronouncing English can be difficult. One reason is because English has some difficult sounds that are, unfortunately for English learners, very common. But English learners can improve their pronunciation by using simple, everyday objects. These objects include candy, a pencil, and a mirror. What are some of these common difficult sounds? Well, you have already heard or read them several times in this story. In English, 2 different sounds are spelled with the same pair of letters, th. You hear th in the word this and th in the word thing. When you say this, your voice box moves. When you say thing, air moves freely through your throat. Marla Yoshida teaches English as a foreign language at the University of California, Irvine. She notes how strange these sounds are.
Those are hard for speakers of a lot of languages because they're very unusual sounds. They're very rare. I don't want to hurt the sounds feeling by saying that they're strange, but they're strange.
Sometimes th sounds are difficult for English learners to make because saying them seems impolite or rude. All cultures have rules about polite ways to speak to each other. When speaking English, learners may need to break some of the rules of politeness they use in their native language. Tamara Jones, a program coordinator at the English Language Center at Howard Community College, explains. She tells why English learners might feel uncomfortable making the v and th sounds.
This can be really tricky for lots of different speakers because in many languages it's not polite to stick your tongue out of your mouth when you're speaking. But in English, to make the th or th sound, you have to put your tongue between your teeth.
So how can English learners teach their tongues to pronounce th and th correctly? Tamara Jones recommends a tasty, fun way to get in the habit of sticking your tongue between your teeth using a lollipop.
I like to give my students lollipops, and they hold the candy right in front of their mouth, and they can practice saying words like thanks or there or this, and they can practice sticking their tongue out between their teeth far enough so they can taste the candy. So this is another fun way to practice saying that tricky sound.
Other sounds in English may not be as strange as v or th, but they can still be difficult to pronounce. One example is the sound. English speakers often use when they make comparisons. Here is an example of an sound in a popular song by Britney Spears. Tamara Jones says many English learners have problems clearly pronouncing the sound. Part of the difficulty is finding the right tongue placement. To practice using the tongue correctly, Jones recommends that English learners use a pencil.
But one little trick that students might find useful is to put a pencil in their mouth lengthwise. So they're biting down on the pencil, and the pencil is sticking out of both sides of their mouth. And then saying the sound when they say the sound, their tongue should not touch the pencil. It should be down under or around the pencil, but it shouldn't touch the pencil. So this is a nice way, kind of a fun way, to make sure that they are pronouncing that sound correctly.
Consonant sounds are not the only common difficult sounds for English learners. Vowel sounds are often difficult, too. Marla Yoshida, the teacher at the University of California, Irvine, points out that English has many vowel sounds. She says that English dialects can include between 13 and 15 vowel sounds. By comparison, some languages, such as Japanese and Spanish, have only 5 vowel sounds. 2 of the hardest challenges for English learners are pronouncing the I and E vowel sounds. Listen for the difference between the I and E sounds in popular music, such as in Tom Waits' song, All the World is Green.
Pretend that you owe me nothing, and all the world is green. We can bring back the old days again, when all the world is green.
Tamara Jones at Howard Community College says one way English learners can start improving their pronunciation of the I and E sounds is to use another common object. Look in a mirror, she says, while you say the words pin and green.
Because to say I, your face is very relaxed, but to say E, you are pulling the sides of your mouth almost like you're smiling. It's a bigger mouth movement. It's a tenser sound, E versus I, that is more relaxed. So looking in a mirror can help students verify that they are saying the sound correctly because their mouth is moving in the correct position.
Clearly pronouncing common but difficult sounds can help you communicate better in English. Improving your pronunciation will take time and hard work, but a few basic objects will help. Touch a lollipop with the tip of your tongue to practice v and th sounds. Bite a pencil, but do not touch it with your tongue when saying the sound. Use a mirror to make sure your face is relaxed when you say I, and that your face is tense when you say E. As you learned in the previous education tips story, pronouncing individual sounds correctly is only part of the pronunciation puzzle. Future education tips stories will give you more suggestions for how to improve your pronunciation. I'm John Russell.
And that's our program for today. Listen again tomorrow to learn English through stories from around the world. I'm Jonathan Evans.
And I'm Ashley Thompson.